Lyra's hands trembled as she pressed the bloodied cloth against the dying wolf pup's wounds, not knowing that the golden eyes staring up at her belonged to the future king of all werewolves, or that saving him would seal her fate forever. The steel trap had done its cruel work. Jagged metal teeth had torn through fur and flesh, leaving the small wolf whimpering in a pool of his own blood. Lyra had been collecting herbs for her grandmother when she heard the pitiful cries echoing through the whispering woods. "Shoo, little one," she whispered, her 10-year-old voice steady despite her racing heart. "I'm going to help you." The pup should have been terrified of her human scent, should have snapped and snarled. Instead, those extraordinary golden eyes, brighter than any wolf she'd ever seen, watched her with an intelligence that made her breath catch. It was like looking at another person trapped in a wolf's body. Lyra pulled the emergency supplies from her herb basket. Grandmother Ira had taught her well: clean cloth, healing salve, and steady hands could work miracles. She worked carefully, cleaning the wounds while the pup lay still as stone, never once trying to bite her. "You're different, aren't you?" she murmured, smoothing the dark fur around his ears. Grandmother always said the woods held mysteries. The pup's ears twitched, and if she didn't know better, she'd swear he understood every word. By the time she finished bandaging his leg, the sun was setting. The woods would be dangerous soon, everyone knew that. But she couldn't leave him here helpless. "I'll come back tomorrow," she promised, gathering her things. The pup watched her go with those unsettling golden eyes, and Lyra felt something shift inside her chest, like a thread being pulled taut between them. The next morning, she snuck out before dawn with more supplies and some of her own breakfast. The pup was awake, alert, and the wounds looked better already. Wolves healed fast, but this seemed impossible. "You must be starving." She offered him bits of bread and meat from her own meal. He ate delicately from her palm, careful not to graze her skin with his teeth. For 3 days, this became her secret ritual. Each morning she crept into the woods, tended his wounds, brought him food, and talked to him like he was her closest friend. Because somehow, he felt like one. The way he tilted his head when she spoke, the soft whines that almost sounded like he was trying to talk back, everything about him seemed too human. On the 3rd evening, she found something that made her heart stop. Beside the hollow log where she'd been caring for the pup lay a silver pendant on a thin chain. It was exquisite, far too fine for anyone in her poor village to own. The pendant was shaped like a crescent moon cradling a star, with intricate knotwork around the edges that seemed to shift and move in the fading light. The pup was gone. "Hello?" she called softly, searching the nearby trees. "Are you there?" Only the wind answered, rustling through the leaves like a whispered goodbye. Lyra picked up the pendant, and the moment her fingers closed around it, warmth spread up her arm. The metal hummed against her skin like it was alive. She fastened the chain around her neck, hiding the pendant beneath her shirt. It felt right there, like it belonged to her. That night, her dreams were filled with golden eyes and a voice she almost recognized, warm, grateful, and touched with sadness. "I will never forget," the voice promised. "Someday, I'll find you again." She woke with tears on her cheeks and the pendant warm against her heart. But her secret didn't stay hidden long. 3 days after the pup disappeared, old Henrik noticed wolf tracks in the mud near their cottage. The news spread through the village like wildfire. Wolves had been near the healer's house, where the girl lived. "It's unnatural," Henrik declared at the village meeting, his weathered face twisted with suspicion. "Wolves don't come so close to human dwellings unless they're hunting. That girl must have done something to draw them." Lyra sat in the back with her grandmother, heart pounding as angry voices rose around them. "My granddaughter collects herbs in the forest," Grandmother Ira said calmly. "She's done nothing wrong." "Then why were there wolf tracks by your door?" demanded Maya, the blacksmith's wife. "Why did they come so close?" Lyra's hand moved instinctively to the pendant hidden beneath her shirt. She could feel its warmth, could almost hear that mysterious voice whispering comfort. "Perhaps," said a new voice from the doorway, "because wolves know when they've found a friend." Father Marcus stepped into the flickering candlelight, his priest's robes rustling. His eyes found Lyra's across the room, and she saw something there that made her blood run cold, not anger, but recognition. There are old stories, he continued, his voice carrying easily through the sudden silence. Stories of those who can speak to the wild things. Who can call beasts to heel with a touch. His gaze never left Lyra's face. Perhaps we should be asking different questions. The villagers turned to stare at her, fear and suspicion thick in the air. Lyra felt Grandmother Ira's hand tighten on her shoulder. She's just a child, her grandmother said firmly. Leave her be. But Lyra could see it in their faces, the doubt, the fear, the growing certainty that she was somehow dangerous. She touched the pendant again, drawing strength from its warmth. Someday, I'll find you again. The promise echoed in her memory as the villagers argued around her. She didn't understand what was happening, didn't know why saving one small wolf would change everything. She only knew that the golden-eyed pup had been special, and that whatever had begun in the Whispering Woods was far from over. As the meeting broke up in angry murmurs and suspicious glances, Lyra made her own silent promise to the mysterious pendant and the wolf who'd left it behind. She would be ready when he returned. She would be waiting. Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 2. 10 years had changed everything except the dreams. Lyra pressed her palm against the warm stone wall of her healing clinic, watching the crowd gather in Moonhaven's central square through the narrow window. The autumn air carried whispers of excitement and fear. The Alpha King was coming. After a decade of building her life in this bustling city, after finally finding a place where her healing gifts were welcomed rather than feared, everything was about to change again. She touched the pendant beneath her simple green dress, feeling its familiar warmth against her skin. Even now, she could hardly believe what she'd learned about it 3 years ago. When old Master Cornelius, the city's scholar of supernatural lore, had seen it by accident, his face had gone white as parchment. Child, he'd whispered, do you know what you wear? The royal seal of the werewolf kingdom. A symbol that hadn't been seen outside the inner circle for generations. How a healer's apprentice had come to possess it was a question that haunted her nights and fueled her dreams of golden eyes and a voice promising to return. Lyra. Her assistant Mira burst through the clinic door, cheeks flushed with excitement. You have to come see. The Alpha King's procession is magnificent, black horses, silver armor, and he's even more handsome than the stories say. Lyra's heart lurched. I should stay here. Someone might need. The whole city's shut down for his arrival. Even the vampires have retreated to their underground halls. Mira grabbed Lyra's hand. Come on. This is history in the making. When will we ever see royalty again? Against her better judgment, Lyra allowed herself to be pulled into the crowd. Moonhaven Square was packed with citizens, merchants, craftsmen, nobles, and common folk all craning their necks for a glimpse of the legendary Alpha King who'd united the scattered werewolf packs under one rule. The procession was indeed magnificent. A dozen riders in midnight black leather and gleaming silver entered the square, their horses stepping in perfect formation. Banners bearing the crescent moon and star, the same symbol as her pendant, snapped in the autumn breeze. Then he appeared, and Lyra's world tilted. Even at a distance, mounted on a massive black stallion, he was unmistakably the boy from her memories grown into a man. Tall and powerfully built, with dark hair that caught the afternoon sun and features that belonged on ancient statues of war gods. But it was his eyes that stopped her breath, the same impossible golden eyes that had watched her with such intelligence and gratitude all those years ago. Alpha King Kieran Blackthorn. The crowd pressed closer as he dismounted, moving with a predator's fluid grace. He was devastating, the kind of beautiful that made women forget their own names. But there was something else there too, something that made Lyra's chest tighten with recognition and longing. This was her wolf pup, grown into the most powerful supernatural being in the realm. By the gods, Mira breathed beside her. Look at him. No wonder every unmarried woman in 5 kingdoms is throwing herself at his feet. Lyra barely heard her. She was pushing through the crowd, driven by a need she couldn't name. She had to get closer, had to see if he would remember. The pendant burned against her skin like it was calling to him. "Your Majesty," Mayor Aldrich was saying as Lyra reached the front of the crowd. "Moonhaven welcomes you. We hope our city can serve your needs during your stay." Kieran's voice was deep, commanding, sending shivers down Lyra's spine. "We require quarters for my pack and myself. We'll be establishing a permanent presence here as we expand our territory." The implications hit the crowd like a thunderclap. Permanent presence meant Moonhaven would be under werewolf rule. No more careful neutrality between the supernatural factions. That's when Kieran's gaze swept the crowd, and their eyes met. The world stopped. Those golden eyes locked onto hers with laser focus, and for one breathless moment, Lyra saw recognition flicker there. Her hand moved instinctively to her pendant, and she saw his gaze follow the movement. Then his expression went cold as winter stone. He looked right through her as if she were a stranger, turning his attention back to the mayor without even a nod of acknowledgement. The dismissal was so complete, so cutting, that Lyra felt it like a physical blow. "I don't remember you," his eyes had said clearly. "You are nothing to me." The crowd began to disperse as Kieran and his entourage moved toward the mayor's mansion, but Lyra stood frozen in place. How could he not remember? How could he look at her with such indifference when she'd saved his life, when she still wore the pendant he'd left behind? "Lyra?" Mira touched her arm gently. "You look like you've seen a ghost." More like a ghost had seen her and decided she wasn't worth haunting. That evening, Lyra threw herself into her work, trying to forget the cold dismissal in those golden eyes. Her clinic stayed busy. Several citizens came in with anxiety attacks over the werewolf takeover, and Mrs. Holloway needed her arthritis tonic adjusted again. She was grinding willow bark for pain relief when Mira burst in again, this time with gossip that made Lyra's hands still on the mortar and pestle. "You'll never guess what I heard at the market," Mira said, settling onto the stool by Lyra's workbench. "The Alpha King isn't just here to expand territory. He's here to meet his bride." Lyra's throat went dry. His bride? Elena Nightshade, daughter of the Northern Pack's leader. Apparently, it's been arranged for months, a political alliance to unite the werewolf kingdoms completely. Myra's eyes gleamed with romantic fascination. "They say she's breathtakingly beautiful. Raven black hair, violet eyes, and absolutely ruthless in negotiations. The perfect queen for a wolf king." The mortar slipped from Lyra's numb fingers, clattering onto the stone floor. Mira rushed to help clean up the spilled herbs, chattering about wedding plans and political implications, but Lyra heard none of it. An arranged marriage. A political alliance. She'd been a fool to think their childhood connection meant anything to him now. He was a king, and she was a village girl who'd escaped to the city to practice healing. They lived in different worlds. But the pendant still burned against her skin, and her dreams still echoed with his voice promising to find her again. 2 days later, everything went to hell. Lyra was treating a young boy's fever when the clinic door burst open with enough force to rattle the windows. 3 men in expensive dark clothing strode in, their pale skin and predatory grace marking them unmistakably as vampires. The leader, tall, silver-haired, and radiating ancient power, smiled with razor-sharp fangs. "Miss Lyra Thorne, I presume?" Her blood turned to ice. "Lord Ravencrest." Everyone in Moonhaven knew the vampire lord's name, even if few had seen him in person. "How lovely that you know me." His voice was silk over steel. "We need to talk." The boy's mother grabbed her son and fled without another word. "Smart woman." "I'm not sure what we could possibly have to discuss," Lyra said, keeping her voice steady while her mind raced toward the silver blade hidden beneath her counter. Ravencrest moved with inhuman speed, suddenly close enough that she could smell death and roses on his breath. "Oh, but we have so much to discuss. Starting with your interesting choice of jewelry." His pale fingers moved toward her neckline, and Lyra jerked back. But not before he'd seen the pendant's chain. "The royal seal," he murmured, genuine surprise flickering in his crimson eyes. "How fascinating. I wonder if our new Alpha King knows his childhood plaything has surfaced." I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you don't. Ravencrest's smile was all predator. Let me explain something, little healer. Moonhaven has been under vampire protection for 50 years. We've kept the peace, maintained the balance. Now these dogs come sniffing around, claiming territory that belongs to us. He circled her like prey, and Lyra forced herself not to show fear. That sounds like a problem between you and the Alpha King. Indeed it is. But you, my dear, are going to help us solve it. Before Lyra could ask what he meant, another voice cut through the tension like a blade. She's not going anywhere with you. Kieran stood in the doorway, no longer the polished king from the square. This was the predator, the Alpha who'd conquered kingdoms. Power radiated from him in waves that made Lyra's knees weak and her pulse race. Ravencrest turned slowly, his smile never wavering. Your Majesty. How good of you to join us. Release her, Ravencrest. Kieran's voice carried the unmistakable command of an alpha, but the vampire lord merely laughed. Release her? But she came to us willingly, didn't you, dear? The lie hung in the air like poison. Lyra started to protest, but Ravencrest's hand moved to her throat faster than lightning, cold fingers pressing against her pulse. One word from me, he said conversationally, and she dies before you can cross the room, wolf. Kieran went perfectly still, and Lyra saw something flicker in his golden eyes, not indifference this time, but carefully controlled rage. What do you want? He asked quietly. Simple. You and your pack leave Moonhaven. Tonight. Never return, and the healer lives. Ravencrest's fingers tightened slightly. Refuse, and she becomes another casualty of war. The silence stretched taut as a bowstring. Lyra could feel Kieran's gaze on her face, could sense the terrible calculation happening behind those golden eyes. Was one healer worth risking his plans for expansion? Worth defying a vampire lord? You have 1 hour to consider, Ravencrest said, finally releasing Lyra. She stumbled back, hand going to her throat. Meet me at the old cathedral at midnight with your answer. He and his companions vanished like smoke, leaving Lyra alone with the Alpha King. The silence was deafening. Are you hurt? Kieran asked, his voice carefully neutral. Lyra shook her head, not trusting her voice. He moved closer, and she caught his scent, wild and clean, like pine forests and mountain air. It called to something deep in her soul. Why did he target you? Kieran's eyes were unreadable. You're just a healer. Just a healer. The words cut deeper than they should have. I don't know, she managed. He seemed interested in my pendant. Something shifted in Kieran's expression, but before he could respond, the clinic door opened again. This time, it was a woman who could only be Elena Nightshade. She was everything the gossips had said and more, tall, elegant, devastatingly beautiful with midnight hair and violet eyes that missed nothing. She moved into the room like she owned it, her gaze taking in the scene with calculating intelligence. Kieran, she said, her voice like honey over steel. I heard there was trouble. Nothing I can't handle, he replied, but Lyra caught the way his shoulders tensed. Elena's violet gaze fixed on Lyra with laser precision. And you are? Lyra Thorne, Lyra said, lifting her chin. I run the healing clinic. How quaint. Elena's smile was sharp as a blade. Kieran, darling, surely this doesn't require your personal attention? We have wedding plans to discuss. Wedding plans. The words hit Lyra like a physical blow, especially the casual way Elena said them, like they were already married in all but name. The matter involves vampire threats against a citizen, Kieran said stiffly. It requires attention. Of course. Elena moved to Kieran's side, her hand sliding possessively up his arm. But surely your beta can handle such things? We're meeting with the pack elders tonight about the ceremony arrangements. Lyra watched the interplay between them, Elena's subtle commands disguised as suggestions, Kieran's careful responses that gave away nothing of his true thoughts. This was what royal matches looked like, she realized. All politics and maneuvering, with duty binding them together more surely than chains. I'll escort Miss Thorne somewhere safe, Kieran said finally. Then I'll join you. Elena's smile never wavered, but her eyes flashed with something dangerous. How gallant. Though I do hope this doesn't become a habit. We can't have the future Alpha Queen worrying about her king's attention to random citizens. The threat was velvet-wrapped but unmistakable. Lyra felt heat rise in her cheeks, anger, not embarrassment. I don't need an escort, she said firmly. I can take care of myself. Against vampires? Kieran's eyebrows rose. I think not. I've been taking care of myself for 10 years, Lyra shot back, her temper finally flaring. I managed just fine before you arrived to complicate everything. Something flashed in Kieran's eyes, surprise, maybe even admiration. Elena's grip on his arm tightened. How fascinating, Elena murmured. She speaks to you like an equal. How refreshing. The condescension in her tone made Lyra's hands clench into fists. In my clinic, we are equals. Wounds don't care about titles. But everything else does, Elena replied smoothly. Don't you think, darling? She looked up at Kieran with those stunning violet eyes. After all, some people are born to rule, and others to serve. It's the natural order. Kieran's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Elena is absolutely right, Elena continued, never taking her gaze from Lyra's face. Don't you agree, Miss Thorne? After all, you wouldn't want to overstep your place. The words hung in the air like a gauntlet thrown down. Lyra felt the pendant burn against her skin, felt 10 years of dreams and hope crumbling into dust. This was reality, him with his perfect political bride, and her with nothing but memories that might have been fantasy. Of course not, Lyra said quietly. I know exactly where I stand. She turned away, busying herself with organizing her herb jars, dismissing them as surely as Kieran had dismissed her in the square. It was petty, but it was all the dignity she had left. The cathedral, Kieran said after a long moment. Midnight. Don't go alone. Then they were gone, leaving Lyra with the scent of pine forests and the echo of promises that would never be kept. Outside, night was falling, and somewhere in the darkness, vampires and werewolves were preparing for war. And she was just a healer caught in the middle, wearing a pendant that meant nothing to the man who'd given it to her. But as she touched the royal seal one more time, Lyra made a decision that would change everything. If Kieran Blackthorne had forgotten their past, she would make sure he remembered it. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 3. The blood moon hung like a crimson eye in the midnight sky, casting everything in shades of copper and shadow. Lyra pulled her cloak tighter as she hurried through Moonhaven's empty streets, her healer's bag bouncing against her hip. She'd been summoned to treat 3 werewolves who'd fallen mysteriously ill after patrol. The war between the supernatural factions was claiming its first casualties. The makeshift infirmary had been set up in the old guild hall, and the scene that greeted Lyra made her stomach clench. 3 of Kieran's pack members lay writhing on cots, their skin gray and slick with fevered sweat. The smell of silver poisoning filled the air, metallic and wrong, like blood mixed with lightning. Thank the gods you're here, said Marcus, Kieran's beta. His usually composed face was tight with worry. They were fine an hour ago, then they just collapsed. Lyra knelt beside the first victim, a young woman who couldn't be more than 20. Her pulse was racing, her breathing shallow. When Lyra touched her forehead, the werewolf's skin was burning hot. Silver poisoning, Lyra confirmed grimly. But I've never seen it progress this fast. What did they eat or drink? Nothing unusual. They were on patrol near the docks when a commotion at the door cut him off. Kieran strode in, still in his battle leathers, Elena gliding beside him like a deadly shadow. His golden eyes swept the room, taking in his fallen pack members with an expression that could have carved stone. Report, he commanded. Silver toxin, Marcus said. Lyra says it's moving too fast for normal exposure. Kieran's gaze fixed on Lyra, and she felt that familiar jolt of recognition mixed with something darker. Can you save them? I'll try. Lyra was already pulling supplies from her bag. But I need to know exactly what happened. Silver poisoning usually takes hours to manifest, not minutes. They were investigating reports of humans going missing near the warehouse district, Marcus explained. Found signs of vampire activity, fresh blood, but no bodies. Elena stepped forward, her violet eyes cold. Perhaps they encountered more than they bargained for. Lyra ignored the subtle accusation in Elena's tone, focusing on mixing her healing tonics. Standard treatments for silver poisoning wouldn't work fast enough, she needed something stronger. I need moon water and blessed salt, she said, not looking up. And someone needs to restrain them. The fever's going to get worse before it gets better. As if summoned by her words, the young woman began convulsing. Kieran moved with supernatural speed, holding her steady while Lyra forced the healing draft between her lips. Easy, Lyra murmured, her hands glowing with a soft warmth she barely noticed. Fight it. You're stronger than the poison. The convulsions gradually subsided, but the woman's breathing remained labored. Lyra moved to the second victim, an older male with silver-streaked hair. And found his condition even worse. This isn't random poisoning, she said, checking his pupils. Someone laced their water with concentrated silver extract. This was deliberate. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. When Lyra looked up, Kieran's eyes were glowing with suppressed rage, his alpha power pressing against everyone present like a physical weight. The vampires, he growled. Probably, Lyra agreed, mixing another healing draft. But why target Patrol Wolf specifically? Why not go for higher-ranking pack members? Elena's laugh was like crystal breaking. Isn't it obvious? They're testing our defenses. Seeing how we respond to casualties. Lyra had been about to respond when the guild hall's doors burst open. 2 more werewolves stumbled in, supporting a third between them who was barely conscious. Alpha, one of them gasped. Vampire ambush at the north gate. They hit us with some kind of gas. The injured werewolf collapsed, convulsing just like the others. Lyra's blood ran cold as she realized the scope of what they were facing. It's not random attacks, she said, her mind racing. It's a coordinated strike. They're trying to overwhelm our healing capabilities. More wounded began arriving, werewolves with silver burns, others poisoned, some simply torn apart by vampire claws. The guild hall transformed into a battlefield triage, and Lyra found herself at the center of it all. She worked with desperate efficiency, her hands moving from patient to patient. Somewhere in the chaos, she became aware of being watched. Kieran stood at the edge of the room, his golden eyes tracking her every movement with an intensity that made her skin prickle. The bleeding's not stopping, Marcus called from across the room. This one's lost too much blood. Lyra rushed over to find a young male werewolf, barely more than a boy, with deep gashes across his chest. His pulse was threadbare, his lips blue with oxygen loss. I need bandages and healing salve, she commanded, but even as the words left her mouth, she knew it wouldn't be enough. He was dying, and traditional healing couldn't save him. Without thinking, Lyra pressed her hands directly over his wounds and let her power flow freely. The pendant around her neck grew warm, then hot, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Live, she whispered, pouring everything she had into the healing. Live. Light erupted from her palms, not the soft glow she was used to, but brilliant silver radiance that filled the entire room. The boy's wounds began closing visibly, flesh knitting together like time running backward. Gasps echoed around the room. When the light faded, the young werewolf was breathing normally, his chest whole and unmarked except for faint silver scars. Lyra swayed on her feet, drained but triumphant. Then she noticed the absolute silence surrounding her. Everyone was staring. Marcus with his mouth hanging open, the other pack members with expressions ranging from awe to fear. Elena's violet eyes were wide with something that looked suspiciously like fury. And Kieran. Kieran was staring at her like he'd seen a ghost. That's impossible, Elena said, her voice sharp as breaking glass. Healing magic of that magnitude requires. Requires what? Lyra asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Moon Witch bloodline, Marcus finished quietly. But moon witches are extinct. Have been for 3 centuries. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Lyra felt the pendant burning against her skin, felt power still humming through her veins like electricity. Moon Witch. The term sent a chill down her spine. She'd heard the stories, the legends of witches who could harness lunar magic for healing and protection. That's ridiculous, she said, forcing a laugh. I'm just a healer. I've been trained in. Her words were cut off by the sound of screaming outside. Through the Guildhall's windows, she could see fires blooming across the city like deadly flowers. They're everywhere, a werewolf scout burst through the doors. Vampires attacking on all fronts. They've got the humans trapped in the market square. Kieran was already moving, shouting orders to his pack. But as they prepared to rush into battle, Elena caught Lyra's arm with fingers like iron claws. Stay here, she commanded, her beautiful face twisted with barely concealed malice. You've done enough damage for one night. Damage? Lyra jerked free. I saved lives tonight. You revealed yourself as a threat, Elena hissed, low enough that only Lyra could hear. Do you think I'm blind? The way he looks at you, the way you affect him? I won't have some hedge witch disrupting my plans. Before Lyra could respond, Elena was gone, flowing after Kieran like a deadly shadow. But her words echoed in Lyra's mind, the way he looks at you. The battle raged through the night. From the Guildhall windows, Lyra could see flashes of supernatural combat, werewolves moving like liquid shadows, vampires striking with inhuman speed. The air itself seemed to pulse with violence and magic. She was treating another wave of wounded when the real attack began. 20 vampires materialized in the Guildhall's main room like nightmares given form. Their leader, a pale woman with eyes like black ice, smiled with perfect fangs. Hello, little moon witch, she purred. Lord Ravencrest sends his regards. Lyra found herself pressed back against the wall with a dozen injured werewolves behind her and death approaching from the front. The vampires moved forward in perfect synchronization, their pale faces eager for slaughter. You can't have them, Lyra said, her voice steadier than she felt. Oh, child, the vampire leader laughed. We're not here for them. We're here for you. They attacked as one, moving faster than human eyes could follow. Lyra had a split second to react, and instinct took over. Power erupted from her like a supernova. Silver light blazed through the Guildhall, so bright it bleached color from the world. But this wasn't healing magic, this was something older, more primal. The light formed a dome around Lyra and the wounded werewolves, solid as steel and twice as bright as the blood moon outside. The vampires struck the barrier and screamed, their flesh smoking where they touched the silver radiance. Some fell back, others pressed forward only to be burned more severely. Impossible, the leader hissed. Moon witch magic hasn't been seen for 3 centuries, Lyra finished, though she had no idea how she knew that. The words, the power, the protective spell, all of it flowed through her like inherited memory. But here I am. The barrier held for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. When it finally faded, Lyra collapsed to her knees, utterly spent. The vampires were gone, fled or destroyed, she couldn't tell which. But the wounded werewolves were alive and staring at her with expressions of awe and terror. Moon witch, one of them whispered. A real moon witch. Lyra wanted to deny it, but the evidence was undeniable. Whatever she was, it wasn't simply human. The pendant around her neck was still warm, still pulsing with residual magic. Dawn was breaking over Moonhaven when Kieran returned. He looked like he'd been through hell, his clothes torn, silver burns marking his arms, exhaustion weighing down his powerful frame. But his golden eyes were alert and searching as they found Lyra among the wounded. "The barrier," he said without preamble. "That was you." It wasn't a question. Lyra nodded, too tired to lie. "Half my pack would be dead without your protection." His voice was carefully neutral, but she caught something underneath: confusion, recognition, and something that might have been fear. "I couldn't let them die," she said simply. Kieran studied her for a long moment, and Lyra had the strangest feeling he was remembering something important. His hand moved toward her, then stopped. "Elena's looking for you," he said instead. "She's concerned about your abilities." The warning in his tone was unmistakable. Lyra straightened, ignoring her exhaustion. "Let her be concerned," she said. "I won't apologize for saving lives." Something flickered in Kieran's golden eyes: approval, maybe even pride. But then Elena appeared at his shoulder like a beautiful poison, and his expression went carefully blank. "Darling," Elena purred, sliding her arm through his. "You look exhausted. Come, let the others handle cleanup. We have a wedding to plan." She emphasized the last words while looking directly at Lyra, her violet eyes promising retribution. As they walked away, Lyra heard Elena's voice, pitched just loud enough to carry. "Such a shame about the Moon Witch rumors. We both know how dangerous it can be when people get the wrong idea about someone's loyalties." The threat was crystal clear. And as Lyra watched them disappear into the dawn light, she realized her problems were just beginning. Because somewhere in the city, vampires were regrouping. Because Elena Nightshade had marked her as an enemy. And because the most powerful werewolf in the realm was looking at her like he was trying to remember a dream he'd lost long ago. But most dangerous of all, Lyra was beginning to remember things too. Magic flowing through her blood. Ancient words in a language she'd never learned. And the growing certainty that her connection to Kieran ran deeper than a childhood rescue. The blood moon was setting, but the real battle was just beginning. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 4. Lyra woke to the taste of copper and darkness. Her head throbbed as consciousness returned slowly, bringing with it the awareness of cold stone beneath her cheek and the acrid smell of old magic in the air. When she tried to move, silver chains bit into her wrists, sending fire through her veins. Awake at last, Lord Ravencrest's cultured voice drifted from somewhere in the shadows. "I was beginning to worry I'd used too much sleeping draught. Moon witches can be delicate." Memory crashed back, Elena's concerned suggestion that Lyra should rest somewhere safe after the vampire attack, the cup of tea that had tasted wrong, the world going gray at the edges. She'd been drugged and delivered like a package. "Where am I?" Lyra's voice came out as a croak. "The old cathedral's crypt." Appropriate, don't you think? After all, this is where moon witches came to die 3 centuries ago. Ravencrest stepped into the circle of candlelight, his pale face serene. "Where they were executed for the crime of existing." Lyra struggled against the chains, but the silver burned her skin wherever it touched. Whatever she was, her supernatural nature made her vulnerable to the same metal that poisoned werewolves. "You're wondering why you're still alive," Ravencrest continued, settling gracefully onto a stone bench. "The answer is simple. You're far too valuable to waste. If you think Kieran will negotiate for my release." "Oh, my dear child." Ravencrest's laughter was like breaking crystal. "You still don't understand, do you? Kieran doesn't even remember you exist. That memory curse has held beautifully for 10 years. Memory curse." The words hit Lyra like a physical blow. "What are you talking about? Did you never wonder why the great Alpha King looked right through you? Why a man supposedly capable of remembering every slight, every ally, every enemy, couldn't recall the little girl who saved his life?" Ravencrest's crimson eyes gleamed with malicious pleasure. "Magic, my dear. Very old, very powerful magic." The pendant around Lyra's neck grew warm, as if responding to her distress. Ravencrest noticed immediately. Ah yes, the royal seal. Such a pretty trinket. Tell me, did your grandmother ever explain what it really is? It's just a pendant, Lyra said, but her voice lacked conviction. Just a pendant. Ravencrest moved closer, his pale fingers hovering over the silver crescent. This pendant is a blood anchor, child. A magical bond forged between a moon witch and her chosen protector. When you saved that wolf pup, when your blood mixed with his, you bound your life force to his forever. The world seemed to tilt around Lyra. That's impossible. Is it? Have you never wondered why your magic is strongest when he's near? Why you can sense his emotions, his pain? Why every healing you've performed seems to draw from the same source? Ravencrest's smile was cruel. You've been sharing a soul for 10 years, and neither of you knew it. Lyra's mind raced, pieces of a puzzle falling into place with sickening clarity. The dreams that had plagued her since childhood, always featuring golden eyes and a voice promising to return. The way her magic had flared brightest during the vampire attack when Kieran was in danger. The constant, aching sense of something missing from her life. My grandmother, she whispered. She knew. Ira was the last moon witch before you, Ravencrest confirmed. Brilliantly powerful, devastatingly beautiful, and utterly ruthless when it came to protecting what she loved. She made quite the bargain to ensure your bloodline survived. What bargain? She came to me 25 years ago, heavy with your mother, begging for sanctuary. The werewolf hunts were intensifying, you see. Moon witches were being slaughtered wherever they were found. So I offered her a deal. I would hide her, protect her family, ensure her granddaughter grew up safe and ignorant of her heritage. In exchange. In exchange for what? Lyra demanded, though part of her already knew she wouldn't like the answer. In exchange, when the time came, that granddaughter would use her power to destroy the werewolf threat permanently. One spell, channeled through the blood anchor, and every werewolf in existence would lose their supernatural abilities forever. Including their precious Alpha King. The horror of it stole Lyra's breath. You're insane. I would never. Wouldn't you? Ravencrest's voice was silk over steel. Even to save his life? Before Lyra could ask what he meant, footsteps echoed through the crypt. Elena emerged from the shadows, but this wasn't the elegant queen-to-be Lyra had come to know. This Elena moved with predatory grace, her violet eyes glowing with an inhuman light that made Lyra's blood freeze. Vampire, she breathed. Half vampire, actually, Elena corrected with a smile that revealed delicate fangs. Daddy was quite the romantic, falling for a vampire lady. Made me perfectly suited for infiltrating werewolf society. You've been working with them all along. Working with them? Elena laughed. Darling, I've been leading them. Did you think Ravencrest orchestrated this elaborate plan on his own? The memory curse on Kieran, the strategic attacks, even finding you, all my ideas. Lyra stared at her in shock. Why? What could you possibly gain? Everything. Elena's eyes blazed with ambition. With Kieran stripped of his wolf and conveniently dead from the process, and you eliminated as a witness, I become the grieving widow who inherits the werewolf kingdom. A kingdom I'll deliver to the vampire covens in exchange for power beyond imagining. The other pack leaders will never accept vampire rule. They will when I'm the one offering it. You see, I've spent years cultivating support, planting seeds of doubt about Kieran's leadership. Amazing how many problems can be traced back to an arrogant alpha who refuses to share power. Elena's smile was poisonous. His death will be tragic but hardly unexpected. After all, he's made so many enemies. Ravencrest cleared his throat delicately. As fascinating as this is, we do have a schedule to keep. The ritual must be performed during the dark moon, which gives us exactly 3 hours. What ritual? Lyra asked, though she was beginning to understand with growing horror. The blood anchor works both ways, child. Just as you've been sustaining Kieran with your life force, he's been sustaining you with his wolf power. Break that connection violently enough, and it will strip him of everything that makes him supernatural: his strength, his healing, his alpha abilities. Ravencrest's eyes gleamed. It will also kill him, of course, but one can't make an omelette without breaking eggs. I won't do it, Lyra said firmly. I don't care what you threaten me with. Oh, but you haven't heard the best part yet. Elena moved closer, pulling a small crystal vial from her pocket. The liquid inside swirled with an oily darkness that made Lyra's skin crawl. This is nightshade extract, concentrated and enhanced with vampire venom. I've already given Kieran the first dose, slipped it into his wine during our romantic dinner tonight. Lyra's heart stopped. What does it do? It's quite elegant, really. The poison will slowly shut down his supernatural healing, then his enhanced strength, then his alpha abilities. Eventually, it will reach his heart. Elena held up the vial, admiring the dark liquid. He has maybe 6 hours before it kills him. The only cure is Moon Witch magic channeled directly into his system. The trap snapped closed around Lyra with perfect precision. Save Kieran by destroying him, or let him die slowly from poison. You're monsters, Lyra whispered. We're survivors, Ravencrest corrected. And now you're going to help us survive by eliminating the werewolf threat once and for all. Lyra closed her eyes, feeling the pendant's warmth against her skin. Somewhere across the city, she could sense Kieran through their bond, confused, weakening, the poison already beginning its work. She had to find a way out of this, had to. The pendant suddenly flared with heat so intense it made her gasp. Images flooded her mind, memories that weren't hers, scenes from a past she'd never lived. A young woman with Lyra's face but steel in her eyes, confronting Ravencrest in this very crypt. You swear on your immortal soul that my granddaughter will be safe? I swear it, Ira. She'll never know what she is until the time comes. And if I refuse your bargain? Then you all die tonight, and the Moon Witch bloodline ends forever. The woman, Ira, her grandmother, pressing a silver pendant against her swollen belly and whispering words in an ancient language. Blood of my blood, magic of my magic, may you be stronger than I ever was. Lyra's eyes snapped open. She tricked you. Ravencrest's expression sharpened. What? My grandmother. She agreed to your bargain, but she left me a way out. Lyra could feel power building in the pendant, magic that had been sleeping for decades finally awakening. She bound a protection spell into the blood anchor. It can't be used to harm werewolves, only to heal them. Impossible, Elena snarled. The blood anchor responds to Moon Witch will. If you want to destroy Kieran. I can't want to destroy him. That's the point. Lyra smiled grimly as understanding flooded through her. The magic is tied to my emotions, my intentions. As long as I love him, as long as I want to protect him, the anchor will only channel healing magic. Ravencrest's face went white with rage. Ira, you clever bitch. Which means, Lyra continued, power crackling around her despite the silver chains, I can cure the poison you gave him. But I can't strip his wolf abilities, no matter how much you torture me. The temperature in the crypt dropped 20 degrees as Ravencrest's supernatural aura flared with fury. Then we'll simply have to ensure you stop loving him, won't we? Before Lyra could ask what he meant, Elena pulled out a second vial, this one filled with liquid silver that seemed to move with its own life. Concentrated liquid silver, enhanced with pain amplification spells, Elena explained conversationally. 1 drop will cause agony. A full dose will drive you permanently insane. Amazing how love can change when mixed with enough suffering. Lyra jerked against her chains, but there was nowhere to run. Elena uncorked the vial with deliberate slowness. Last chance, Moon Witch. Break the blood anchor and save us all a great deal of unpleasantness. Go to hell. Elena smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. She tipped the vial toward Lyra's skin, and froze as a roar of pure rage echoed through the crypt. Kieran erupted through the cathedral doors like an avenging angel, his golden eyes blazing with power that made the air itself crackle. But he wasn't alone. Behind him came his beta Marcus and a dozen pack warriors, all of them radiating lethal intent. Get away from her, Kieran snarled, his voice carrying the full weight of alpha command. Elena spun to face him, the vial still in her hand. Darling. How wonderful that you're here. Though you really should be resting. That poison I gave you. Nightshade extract with vampire venom, Kieran interrupted, stalking forward with predatory grace. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? I'd been building immunity to vampire toxins for years. Elena's perfect composure cracked. Impossible. The dose was calculated to incapacitate a normal alpha. I'm not normal. Kieran's eyes found Lyra's across the room, and she saw something in them that made her heart soar. Complete recognition, blazing love, and memories restored. I remember everything now. Every moment in those woods, every word she spoke to me, every promise I made. The memory curse, Ravencrest began. Broke the moment she was in real danger, Kieran said, never taking his eyes off Lyra. Turns out blood anchors work both ways. I felt her fear, her pain, and suddenly I remembered the little girl with healing hands who saved my life. Elena's face twisted with pure hatred. Fine. If I can't have the kingdom, then no one can. She raised the vial of liquid silver, clearly intending to throw it at Lyra. But she never got the chance. Kieran moved faster than lightning, his hand closing around Elena's throat before she could complete the motion. The vial fell to the stone floor and shattered, its contents hissing as they ate through the ancient stone. You made one mistake, Kieran said quietly, his voice deadly calm. You threatened my mate. Elena managed a strangled laugh. Your mate? She's nothing but a village healer. She's everything, Kieran corrected. My soul, my heart, my other half. The woman I've been searching for without knowing it for 10 years. The love in his voice made Lyra's eyes sting with tears. But they weren't safe yet. Kieran, she called urgently. Ravencrest. She turned to where the vampire lord had been standing, but found only empty shadows. He'd vanished like smoke, leaving behind only the echo of his voice. This isn't over, Moon Witch. We'll find another way. Kieran released Elena, letting her crumple to the floor gasping. His pack warriors moved to secure her while he rushed to Lyra's side. The chains, she said as he knelt beside her. Silver. I know. His hands were gentle as he examined the locks. Marcus, bolt cutters. Now. The silver chains fell away, and Lyra collapsed into Kieran's arms. He held her carefully, as if she might disappear at any moment. I'm sorry, he whispered against her hair. I'm so sorry I didn't remember, didn't protect you, didn't. You're here now, Lyra interrupted, pulling back to look into his golden eyes. That's all that matters. I remember all of it, Kieran said, his thumb tracing her cheek. The little girl who risked everything to save a wounded pup. The way you talked to me like I was human when I'd forgotten what that felt like. The promise I made to find you again. I never stopped believing you would, Lyra admitted. Kieran's smile was brilliant as sunrise. Good. Because I'm never letting you out of my sight again. He leaned down to kiss her, and Lyra felt their bond flare with golden light, not the desperate magic of survival, but the warm radiance of love freely given and returned. Around them, the pack warriors finished securing Elena, who was already planning her next move with typical ruthless efficiency. Ravencrest had escaped, which meant the vampire threat was far from over. But for this moment, none of that mattered. Kieran had found her, remembered her, chosen her despite the political chaos it would cause. The blood anchor pulsed warm against her heart, no longer a chain binding them together but a bridge connecting their souls. What happens now? Lyra asked against his lips. Kieran's smile was pure alpha confidence. Now we finish what they started. Together. The war was far from over, but they would face it as they'd always been meant to, as two halves of the same soul, finally whole. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 5. The ancient ritual chamber beneath Ravencrest's stronghold thrummed with malevolent energy as Lyra knelt within the circle of burning candles, her hands pressed against the ornate silver bowl that would either save Kieran's life or end her own. You have 1 hour before the poison reaches his heart, Ravencrest purred from the shadows beyond the ritual circle. I suggest you work quickly. Through their blood bond, Lyra could feel Kieran weakening in his silver-lined cell 3 floors above. The nightshade extract was doing its deadly work, systematically shutting down his supernatural abilities. Soon it would reach his heart, and not even alpha healing could save him. The incantation is simple, Elena said, circling the ritual space like a predator. Despite her capture, she'd managed to escape during transport and had beaten them to Ravencrest's stronghold. Channel your life force into the bowl, let it mix with his blood, and speak the words of binding. Your death will purge the poison from his system completely. Lyra's hands trembled as she lifted the ceremonial blade. One cut, a few words in the ancient tongue, and Kieran would live. The fact that she would die in the process seemed a small price to pay. There has to be another way, she whispered, stalling for time she didn't have. There isn't, Ravencrest said with false sympathy. The blood anchor ensures that only your death can break the poison's hold. It's beautifully poetic, really, your love will destroy you both. Lyra closed her eyes, feeling for Kieran through their bond. His consciousness was fading, his breathing shallow. She had minutes, not hours. I'm sorry, she whispered to him across the distance between them. I'm so sorry we didn't have more time. The blade bit into her palm, and her blood began to flow into the silver bowl. Ancient magic stirred to life around her, recognizing the sacrifice being offered. Bound by blood, sealed by love, she began the incantation, her voice growing stronger with each word. Let my life force. The chamber doors exploded inward. Kieran stood in the doorway like an avenging god, his golden eyes blazing with power that made the very air crackle. But he looked wrong, his skin was gray, his movements labored. The poison was killing him even as he fought it. Stop, he commanded, his voice carrying the full weight of alpha authority. Lyra's hand froze over the bowl, the ritual half completed. Kieran, you can't be here. The poison will kill me in minutes, he agreed, stumbling into the ritual circle. Behind him, she could see the unconscious forms of Ravencrest's guards. Which is why we're going to do this differently. There is no other way, Elena snarled, her fangs extended. The ritual requires equivalent sacrifice, Kieran interrupted, dropping to his knees beside Lyra. It doesn't specify whose sacrifice. Understanding hit Lyra like a physical blow. No. Kieran, no. You can't. Watch me. He took the blade from her nerveless fingers and drew it across his own palm. His blood joined hers in the silver bowl, and immediately the chamber filled with impossible light. What are you doing? Ravencrest demanded, his usual composure cracking. Something no Alpha King has ever done, Kieran said, his eyes never leaving Lyra's face. I'm choosing love over power. The magic in the room shifted, recognizing a new pattern. This wasn't just a healing ritual anymore, it was something unprecedented. Kieran, if you do this, you'll lose everything, Lyra said desperately. Your alpha power, your connection to the pack, your royal bloodline. I'll lose nothing that matters, he said firmly. My power means nothing without you. My kingdom is worthless if you're not there to share it. Elena let out a shriek of rage. You fool. You'll destroy everything our kinds have built. No, Kieran said, his blood continuing to flow into the bowl beside Lyra's. We'll build something better. He began to speak words in the ancient tongue, not the death ritual Elena had taught Lyra, but something else entirely. Words of binding, of sharing, of choosing partnership over dominion. By my blood freely given, by my power willingly shared, let the burden be divided and the bond be strengthened. The light in the chamber became blinding. Lyra felt Kieran's life force flowing into her even as hers flowed into him. But this wasn't the one-way transfer of the death ritual. This was a true merging, a balance of power that had never existed before. The poison burning through Kieran's system hit the barrier of their combined magic and simply dissolved. Neutralized by forces it had never been designed to combat. When the light faded, they were both alive, both breathing, both forever changed. Lyra could feel the difference immediately. She was no longer purely Moon Witch. There was something wild and fierce in her blood now, something that howled at the moon and ran through forests. And Kieran. "Your eyes," she whispered, touching his face. His golden eyes now held flecks of silver that shifted like starlight. He was still alpha, still powerful, but the raw dominance had been tempered by something softer, something that felt like moonlight and healing herbs. "What have you done?" Ravencrest breathed, staring at them in horror. "We've evolved," Kieran said simply, helping Lyra to her feet. "Something neither vampire nor werewolf, neither witch nor human. Something new." Elena snarled and lunged at them with supernatural speed, her claws extended for killing strikes. But she never reached them. Power erupted from Lyra and Kieran simultaneously, not the raw force of an alpha or the gentle healing of a moon witch, but something that combined the best of both. Elena hit their joined barrier and screamed as silver fire engulfed her. When it faded, she was gone. Not dead, simply elsewhere, transported by magic to somewhere far from their sight. "Impossible," Ravencrest whispered, but his voice held fear now instead of confidence. "Entirely possible," Kieran corrected. "You made one fundamental error, Ravencrest. You assumed power could only be held by one person, that sharing it would make us weaker. But we're stronger together than we ever were apart," Lyra finished, silver light still dancing around her fingers. Ravencrest looked between them, calculating odds that were no longer in his favor. "This isn't over. There are others who will oppose this abomination you've created. Then they'll learn what we learned," Kieran said calmly. "That love shared is not love diminished, but love multiplied." The vampire lord vanished into shadow, but his parting words echoed through the chamber. "The old ways will return. They always do." Alone at last, Lyra turned to face Kieran fully. The man standing before her was the same person she'd saved as a child, the same soul she'd loved from the moment she'd looked into those golden eyes. But he was also irrevocably changed. "What you did," she began, then stopped, overwhelmed by the magnitude of his sacrifice. "What I did was choose the only future worth having," Kieran said, stepping closer. "A future with you in it. But your kingdom, your pack, will adapt. They'll have to." His smile was gentle but determined. "The pack bonds still hold, but they're different now. Softer. More like family and less like military hierarchy." Lyra could feel it through their connection. Dozens of wolves across the realm, suddenly freed from the rigid alpha dominance that had ruled their kind for millennia. They were confused but not lost, bound together by loyalty and affection rather than submission and fear. "The other alphas will challenge this," Lyra warned. "Let them try." Kieran's eyes flashed with their new silver light. "They'll discover that shared power is exponentially more effective than absolute control." They made their way out of Ravencrest's stronghold hand in hand, their combined magic clearing a path through the vampire's remaining defenses. But when they emerged into the moonlight, Kieran suddenly stopped. "What is it?" Lyra asked. Instead of answering, Kieran sank to one knee before her, and Lyra's heart nearly stopped. "Kieran, what are you?" "I'm not proposing," he said quickly, seeing her panic. "Not yet. This is something else entirely." He reached into his jacket and pulled out something that made Lyra gasp, a crown. Not the heavy, masculine crown of the werewolf kings, but something new. Delicate silver work intertwined with moonstone and obsidian, creating a piece that was both regal and beautiful. "For 10 years, I should have been searching for you," Kieran said, his voice thick with emotion. "For 10 years, I should have been moving heaven and earth to find the little girl who saved my life. Instead, I forgot you. I let magic steal away the most important memory I possessed." "Kieran." let me finish. Please. He looked up at her with those extraordinary eyes, and Lyra saw tears tracking down his cheeks. I failed you in the most fundamental way possible. I broke the promise I made to find you again. There is no excuse, no justification that can undo that failure. The memory curse wasn't your fault, Lyra protested. But allowing it to be placed on me was. A stronger man, a better king, would have fought it harder. Would have known something was missing and moved the world to find it. He held up the crown, silver light playing across its surface. I can't give you back those 10 years. I can't undo the pain my absence caused. But I can give you something no Alpha King has ever offered. What? Equality. The word rang with power and sincerity. Not a position as my mate, my queen, my partner. An equal share of everything I am, everything I have, everything I rule. Half my kingdom, half my power, half my authority. True partnership in every sense of the word. Lyra stared at him in shock. That's impossible. The werewolf kingdom has never. The werewolf kingdom has never had a moon which is co-ruler either, but we're about to change that. Kieran's smile was brilliant. Marry me, Lyra. Not to be my queen, but to be my equal. Help me build something better than what came before. The crown in his hands pulsed with warm light, and Lyra realized it wasn't just ornamental. It was alive with magic, designed to channel and amplify her power rather than suppress it. You're asking me to reshape the supernatural world, she said softly. I'm asking you to save it, Kieran corrected. The old ways are dying, vampires and werewolves at constant war, moon witches extinct, humans caught in the crossfire. But we could build something new. A council where all supernatural beings have a voice. Treaties based on mutual respect rather than fear. Peace that lasts because it benefits everyone. Lyra looked at the crown, then at the man kneeling before her with his heart in his eyes. 10 years ago, she'd saved a wounded wolf pup because it was the right thing to do. Now he was asking her to save the world for the same reason. Yes, she whispered, then stronger, yes. Kieran slipped the crown onto her head, and immediately Lyra felt the magic respond. Not the overwhelming rush of uncontrolled power, but a steady flow of energy that enhanced rather than consumed. Through their bond, she felt Kieran's matching crown settle onto his brow, simpler than hers, designed for support rather than display. When they stood together, two equal rulers united by love and purpose, the very air around them shimmered with possibility. 5 years later. The Whispering Woods looked exactly as they had the day Lyra first found a wounded wolf pup caught in illegal traps. Same ancient trees, same dancing shadows, same sense of magic hiding just beneath the surface. But everything else had changed. Mama, look. Lyra turned from her herb gathering to see her daughter Arya. 4 years old with Kieran's golden eyes and Lyra's healing gift, carefully bandaging a rabbit's injured paw. Beside her, her twin brother Kai watched with the serious attention of a born protector, his silver-flecked eyes already showing the keen intelligence that would make him a formidable leader someday. Very good, sweetheart, Lyra said, settling beside her children in the forest clearing. Remember, healing is always a choice, never a demand. Like you and Papa choosing to share power instead of fighting for it? Arya asked with the uncanny insight children possessed. Exactly like that. Kieran's voice came from above, and Lyra looked up to see him perched easily in the branches of an oak tree, his enhanced agility making the impossible climb look effortless. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is choose cooperation over conquest. He dropped lightly to the ground and settled beside his family, automatically checking their surroundings with senses that were now attuned to both wolf instincts and magical currents. The council meeting went well? Lyra asked, noting the satisfaction in his expression. Better than expected. Lord Ashworth's vampire coven has agreed to the new protection protocols for human settlements. Apparently, having a steady, willing blood supply is preferable to hunting and hiding. Kieran grinned. Amazing what people will agree to when you offer them something better than what they have. The Supernatural Council had been their greatest success, a governing body that included werewolf alphas, vampire lords, the few remaining moon witches they'd managed to find, and even some human representatives. It hadn't been easy to establish, and there were still holdouts like Ravencrest who preferred the old ways of shadow and conflict. But for the most part, the supernatural world had embraced the change. Especially when they realized that cooperation actually improved their lives rather than restricting them. Any word from the Northern Territories? Lyra asked. The pack restructuring is proceeding smoothly. Turns out that when you give wolves a choice between the old authoritarian system and the new partnership model, most choose partnership. Kieran's expression grew thoughtful. There have been challenges, but nothing we can't handle together. Together. That had become their motto, their approach to everything. No decision made alone, no power wielded in isolation, no challenge faced without the other's support. Mama, Kai said suddenly, his small hand pointing toward the edge of the clearing. Someone's coming. Lyra followed his gaze and saw a figure approaching through the trees, a young woman, perhaps 16, with the telltale silver eyes of Moon Witch heritage. She moved hesitantly, clearly afraid but determined. Another one? Kieran asked softly. Seems like it. Lyra stood, brushing dirt from her simple dress. Third one this month. Word had spread through the supernatural underground. The lost Moon Witches were finding their way home. Some had been hidden by families like Lyra's grandmother had hidden her. Others had grown up thinking they were simply humans with unusual intuition. But the magical awakening that had accompanied Lyra and Kieran's bonding had called to them, drawn them back to their heritage. It's all right, Lyra called to the approaching girl. You're safe here. The young woman stepped into the clearing, her eyes wide with wonder as she took in the scene, two obviously powerful supernaturals sitting peacefully with their children, radiating safety rather than threat. Are you the Moon Witch Queen? She asked hesitantly. I'm Lyra, Lyra said simply. And you are? Mira. I've been having dreams, visions of this place. My grandmother left me a journal before she died, told me to find the woman who wears the crescent crown when the time was right. Myra's voice grew stronger. I think I'm like you. Lyra exchanged a glance with Kieran, seeing the same mixture of hope and determination in his eyes that she felt in her own heart. Every moon which they found was another step toward rebuilding their people, another chance to ensure the magical bloodline survived. Would you like to learn? Lyra asked. Myra's nod was eager, desperate. More than anything. As Kieran gathered their children and Lyra began the gentle process of awakening another Moon Witch to her heritage, the forest around them seemed to pulse with approval. The Whispering Woods had seen the beginning of their story, a little girl saving a wounded wolf out of simple kindness. Now they were witnessing its continuation, that same kindness grown into something that could reshape the world. Papa, Arya asked as they walked toward home, little Mira chattering excitedly with Lyra about her newfound abilities. Do you think we'll always live happily? Kieran considered the question seriously, as he did all his children's inquiries. I think we'll always have challenges, little star. But we'll face them together, and together we're strong enough to handle anything. Even bad vampires like the stories? Even those. Kieran's smile was confident. Because we have something they don't understand, we know that real power isn't about controlling others. It's about lifting them up. As they emerged from the forest, their home came into view, not a castle or palace, but a large, comfortable house surrounded by gardens where medicinal herbs grew alongside children's flowers. A place where the supernatural and mundane coexisted as naturally as breathing. The Whispering Woods stretched behind them, eternal and patient, keeping their secrets and sheltering the next generation of dreamers who would discover that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could indeed reshape entire worlds. And in the gathering twilight, if you knew how to look, you could see the shimmer of magic that promised even greater wonders still to come. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe, like and share this video to continue listening to this type of story daily and also, to appreciate this community too. I would like to hear your wonderful opinion about this story. Please comment below.